Welcome to our webinar on how to treat chronic inflammation. I'm Dr. Jyoti Patel, and today we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, but I'm going to tackle how to beat chronic inflammation. We're going to talk about what causes it, how to test for it, and what you can do to treat it. So to get started, for those of you who are here in the audience today, how many of you know what inflammation is? Maybe you've heard of the term, maybe you know what it is, maybe you don't know. So feel free to message in the chat. How many of you know what inflammation is? It's an interesting word, isn't it? Source of all disease, Beverly? Absolutely. Can be, for sure. Can be. So sometimes the word inflammation can have multiple meanings. Gut inflammation, Debbie? Absolutely. The gut is the seat of all health. So oftentimes when there's inflammation, we sort of have to start there. Patricia, you have it and you know it. Yes, it's a very common theme. A lot of times people don't recognize inflammation. So we're going to talk a little bit about what it is, what causes it, and what we can do about it. So inflammation is actually a very normal process in the body. It's a response to injury or infection. And yes, Beverly, we have it at some level at all times. So think about a paper cut. You get a paper cut, it gets swollen, it's tender, it gets red, and then within a few days, that paper cut has healed itself. So the body has this process of causing inflammation and then repairing and stopping the inflammation. So we are designed to turn on and off inflammation depending on what's going on in our body. And maybe you came into contact with a virus, and initially you might have cold-like symptoms. That's the inflammatory process. And then when the body has resolved the infection, the inflammation goes away. So in a normal, healthy body, we expect to have a response to injury, to infection, to allergies, to burns, to falls, to insect bites. Even digesting food is an inflammatory process, removing toxins, cells that are turning over as we age, making energy through food, removal of cancer cells. All of the processes that the body is doing on an ongoing basis creates these tiny flames in our body. But the body has the ability to then turn off those flames and resolve the problem. The problem occurs. So, question, what goes wrong? What do you think leads to this chronic inflammatory state? I just talked about how normal inflammation is like a paper cut. It gets inflamed, it heals, and it's gone. But why does inflammation stick around? Why do we have so much inflammation in the body? If you have thoughts about inflammation, let me know in the chat. So the truth is that there are two simple reasons why we're chronically inflamed. We're chronically, yes, Patricia, you say leaky gut. Susan, you say unhealthy food. Absolutely. There are two reasons why we're chronically inflamed. One is we're continuously bombarded and polluted with toxins, foods, infections, emotional stress, spiritual trauma, physical injuries that are stuck in the system. And secondly, we struggle with keeping up with the cleansing and the repairing of the systems. Not only that, but sometimes our immune system can mistakenly attack ourselves, causing further harm. And Beverly, you mentioned bad nutrition and daily habits like lack of sleep. Absolutely. This sort of perpetuates the fire that's burning in the body. So you have this paper cut, but you never allow it to heal, right? Or you've got a splinter that just is embedded in the tissue and it doesn't allow it to heal. So either we're continuously bombarded with something that hasn't left the body, or our body's ability to remove that and heal that process is not functioning properly. So when we have unregulated chronic inflammation, this causes chronic disease. So how does chronic disease show up in the body? What are some of you've mentioned some really great reasons why we're inflamed, but what are some of the problems that we get when we're chronically inflamed? Let me know in the chat. Brain fog. Sherry, you're absolutely right. Fatigue. Absolutely. So these are symptoms that we have from this chronic fire burning in the system. Bloating, weight gain. So it affects our gut, like you mentioned, leaky gut earlier. Again, this chronic inflammatory state in our gut lining causes things to seep into the body, and that can cause damage to the system as well. So, causes of that pollution can be too many antibiotics or medications. Absolutely, Debbie. So, we find that's number one. Beverly, you're mentioning cancer, bad mental health, feeling sluggish. These are all the downstream effects of chronic inflammation. Absolutely right. You guys are right, spot on. So I've put together a little bit. Obviously, it's not a comprehensive list, but take a look at this list and see if anything resonates with you or people that you know. Poor gut bacteria, dysbiosis, having a lot of GI issues, constipation, diarrhea, IBS, overgrowth of bacteria, poor vagal tone, gut infections. It might affect other parts of your body. You might have severe allergies. You might be chronically congested, or you have skin problems like acne and eczema. You may have been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition or have intolerance to certain foods. Now, on a metabolic side, which is also chronic inflammation, you may have been diagnosed with fatty liver or gallbladder issues, or you have decreased kidney function. You tend to have more swelling and congestion, or you've been toxic with metals. This may have affected your mental state, anxiety, depression, fatigue. Yes, absolutely. Any state of unhealthiness is chronic inflammation. Symptoms that you may have may be migraines, vertigo, you may be diagnosed with seizures. A lot of us can relate to hormonal imbalances. If you're young and you have PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, or you have endometriosis, too much heavy bleeding, that can be a cause of chronic inflammation. If you've been diagnosed with infertility, or you've had problems with weight gain, weight loss, changes in libido, any kind of symptom that's hormonally related can be an inflammatory process in that area. Oftentimes, people overlook the cardiovascular system, but did you know that heart disease is an inflammatory condition? So when we get inflammation in our arteries, we get clogged arteries. When we have high blood pressure, it causes inflammation in the system. Heart failure is inflamed heart muscle. So oftentimes we overlook that this chronic inflammatory state might be attacking these organs. We always think of inflammation as joint pain and arthritis, but it's so much more. Don't you agree? So let's start with this. And some of you already mentioned some of the things in the comments so far, but give me examples of things that are coming into the body on an ongoing basis through your environment by choice or not that could be causing disease. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. Sugar and mold. Yeah, very, very important to think about both food and environment. Plastic, absolutely, Deb. You know what? We ignore environmental pollutants like plastic, BPA, parabens, sulfites in our skincare, body care, household products, our Teflon pans. All these things are slow seeding inflammatory triggers. Even stress, absolutely yes. So we don't think of pollution as mind pollution, but think about things like the news, TV, the elections, right? Things that are going on in the world, wars, all the things that we have no control over, our relationships. Maybe we have financial stress, maybe we have health-related anxiety. All of these things are polluting the body and causing systemic inflammation. Beverly has a question. She says, is osteoporosis of outcome of inflammation? The answer is absolutely yes. It is a metabolic disease of the bones, and it is a slow seeping inflammatory disease. So we do want to tackle the root causes of bone loss as well when we talk about inflammation in general. Patricia, you mentioned seed oils. Absolutely, food is the source of most of our pollutants. So we're going to make a list of a few things here. So at the top of the list, I mentioned ultra-processed foods. Now, I'm not an extremist. It's inevitable that at any point in our life, we're going to consume foods that are not completely whole, and I get it. But the poison is in the dose. The poison is in the dose. If we continuously stop at McDonald's after work, or we're always grabbing a bag of potato chips at the grocery store, these continuous, incessant injuries to the body are going to cause inflammation. So ultra processed food, anything that's made in the factory. Things like refined sugars, oils, white flour, fried foods, trans fats, post-inflammatory pigment alteration and vitiligo, a cause of inflammation. Absolutely, Debbie. We know that vitiligo is a condition where you lose pigment of the skin, and it's a direct attack to the melanin in the tissue by the immune system that's confused between toxin and self. So the proteins in the melanin get confused and the immune system starts attacking the skin. So yes, absolutely. Beverly, you mentioned the 80-20 rule when you're making good food choices. It's a really great rule to have. Never punish or demonize food. Always ask yourself if it's in alignment. Sometimes when I go out to eat, it causes so much inflammation in my body. I feel stiff and I feel crunchy and swollen the next day. I don't know if you have experienced that when you go out to dinner, maybe you had a few drinks, maybe you ate a little bit too much rich food, and the next day you definitely feel the effects of that food in the body. And one of the analogies I give is like, think of the planet. If we have a little bit of pollution on the planet, the planet body can absorb it. The trees can take up the carbon monoxide. The rain can wash pollution away. The earth can shift and change to heal itself. But if we're constantly bombarding the planet with pollutants in the air, in the soil, in the water, we have mounds of plastic building up in the ocean, you can imagine that the Earth's capacity to heal itself becomes diminished, and we start to have signs of disease on the planet. So now think of your body as Mother Earth and the volume of pollutants coming in. Your body has the ability to handle those fires. But if we keep bombarding our food with inflammatory substances, then the ability for the body to repair itself diminishes, and that eventually causes disease. So we're looking at nitrates and artificial sweeteners and preservatives and emulsifiers in our food. I encourage you to read labels. Now, overgrowth of bacteria can do it. We talked a little bit about other things like environmental toxins, your makeup, your skincare, your body care products, your perfumes, your household cleaners, candles that you light, fragrances that you spray on your body, petrochemicals that are found in these skincare products, plastic and plastic-like products. These are all pollutants. So again, a small move towards reading labels, a small move towards picking more greener products when it comes to things that go on your body and in your body. We talked about emotional stress, eating, overeating, emotional stress, trauma from the past that's seated in the body that we haven't let go of. All of these things can cause chronic systemic inflammation. Mary, thank you for your comment. It says, yes, you'll be amazed when you start reading labels. It is amazing. Heavy metals, which sometimes we unknowingly consume, like mercury in some fish, can be really, harmful to the body if you overexpose yourself. Old injuries can cause chronic inflammation, sleep deprivation, chronic stress, weight gain, belly fat can cause chronic inflammation, sitting a lot. Sitting is the new smoking. We found out that not only is being active good for us, but prolonged sitting is really bad for us. So again, we live in a very comfortable environment. We have cars, we have transportation, we have things coming to us, like when we can order our food is delivered to the door, Amazon delivers packages to our door. We no longer even have to walk any further than our doorstep. So this sedentary lifestyle is also increasing inflammation. Other things in our lifestyle, tobacco, alcohol, and I know that's not always popular, but we know that alcohol is very inflammatory, even in small amounts, causing dementia and heart disease. Not just, a problem with addiction, but it's also causing systemic inflammation. Substances, poor circadian rhythms, and loneliness. Did you know that the longest study on longevity was done by Harvard University? And they found one of the mitigating factors for living a long life is having connection. So, and during COVID, we found out that when people were socially isolated, it was one of the most highest health detriments, meaning it affected people's health in a negative way. So convenience is a negative. It is. So give yourself a little bit of stress. Make a little bit of stress your norm. Take a few more steps Park your car further away. Go up and down the aisles when you go grocery shopping. Take the stairs when you can. Just make your life a little bit uncomfortable. You'll find that that actually gives you more length of life and improves your health span. Now, I put in the bottom here, microplastics were found in plaque of the carotid arteries. So there was a study in the New England Journal of Medicine where they dissected the arteries of the neck and they analyzed the plaque. And they found that those people that had microplastics in their neck arteries, in the plaque, embedded in the plaque, had a higher mortality in the following 4 years than the patients who didn't. Now, we're getting microplastics through so many things, not just drinking out of plastic water bottles. Everything is polluting our body. Debbie, you recommend reading the blue zones? Yes. So when we talk about longevity, these are the areas in the world that have lived the longest, meaning they're centenarians. There's more centenarians, people that live to 100 in these particular regions of the world. And there's even a Netflix documentary on it. So if you're not a reader, you can always pop in a Netflix series and watch it. But it's a really amazing thing to see what these people do to live to 100. And social connection is one of those biggest health mediators. And yes, Beverly, you said plastic wrapped food. We don't think of that, but even our vegetables, our fruit that we buy at the grocery store is wrapped in plastic. A lot of people cook their food in saran wrap or plastic, or they buy those TV dinners that they put in microwaves, and that's all plastic. And that's, of course, going to get into your food. And there's actually studies to show that there's trillions of nanoparticles that make it into your food when you heat your food up in plastic. The second reason, so we talked about pollution, the pollutants that get onto the body, just like the planet is polluted. The second reason is the body's systems can't keep up. And the same analogy, you can pollute the planet a little bit, but when there are landfills that are as high as Mount Everest, it's hard for the earth to keep up. So in the same way, your gut bacteria, which are trillions of organisms that live in your colon, are working furiously to try to get rid of all the toxins coming in through the gut. But when we have an overgrowth of bad bacteria, when we have poor nutrition that doesn't feed the good bacteria, and when we have inflamed gut lining where everything's leaking into the body, imagine that you have a sewer pipe running through your home, but now that sewer pipe has big holes in it, and all that sewage is leaking into your home. Your home wouldn't feel or smell very good, right? In the same way, when the gut lining becomes porous and becomes eroded, then all the fecal matter and all the toxins in your colon seep into the body, and this can cause inflammatory conditions all over the body. So another place where that dysregulation happens is our immune system. Did you know that 70% of your immune system lives in your gut? 70% of your immune cells are in your gut. They're one cell layer beneath your gut lining. So remember I described that sewage pipe with holes in it, and it's leaking sewage into your home? If your colon wall has holes in it, the other side of that wall is your immune system. So it gets triggered and triggered and triggered, and eventually the immune system starts attacking not just the things coming through the gut wall, but even healthy tissue like the melanin in your skin, or the hair follicles causing alopecia, or the joint cartilage causing rheumatoid arthritis, or organs causing lupus. So oftentimes when patients come to me with autoimmune diseases, I always tell them all diseases start in the gut, and that's a good place for us to start. The organs that help you clean toxins out of your body may be sluggish. Your liver needs to clean out toxins. But if your liver is fatty, infiltrated, sluggish, cirrhotic, it can't do its job well. And that's going to cause more toxicity and inflammation in the body. Your gut, if you're constipated, if you're not regular with your bowel movements, things are going to seep back into the system. If you're not drinking enough water, if you have kidney failure, that's going to impair your body's ability to clean toxins. There's a question. How often does the liver need to be cleansed? The liver does its own cleaning. Think of your liver as a self-cleaning oven. Every 6 minutes, your blood filters through the liver, and the liver has 2 cycles, 2 rinse cycles. Think of it as a water treatment plant. Blood flows through the The first turnstile that cleans out the big toxins is called the P450 pathway, CYP450 pathway. So that's the big turnstile. It takes out the big dumpy trash. Then the blood flows through the second part of the liver. We call that the second phase of cleansing. Now it takes out the smaller trash and it conjugates the trash to either water-soluble particles or fat-soluble particles. And so those liver cells will then either push those toxins to your kidney and filter it out through the urine, or it'll push it through your bile and filter out those toxins through your colon. So your question is, what do you need to do to help your liver function properly? You need to optimize your nutrition with powerful antioxidants. Your liver loves cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts. It also loves sulfur-based vegetables like onions and garlic. And it needs powerful antioxidants like vitamin A, C, and E that you get through dark leafy greens, citrus and fruits, seeds and nuts. So I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but your liver is really an organ that needs your support to help it function properly. Your skin has trillions of pores. You can sweat the toxins out of your skin. Your lungs are constantly breathing out carbon dioxide, so you can work on your lung function. So when our detox organs are sluggish, then our systems can't keep up with all the toxins coming in. Also, your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system also regulates detoxification. So if your brain is inflamed, if you're in fight, flight, freeze, then you're going to have brain fog. Then you are going to have a sluggish colon. You are going to have a dysregulated immune system because your nervous system is the conductor of all these organs. And if the conductor has lost its balance, then the orchestra doesn't know how to perform. So working on mind-body practices, breath work, meditation, time in nature, relaxation, good sleep practices, exercise, helps your nervous system function properly, which can then help all the other organs do their job. Hormones. Hormones regulate our pathways by communication. So when the communication signals are off, then everything else stops functioning. When you're eating too much sugar, like someone mentioned, your insulin levels are high. That causes inflammation. When you're stressed, your cortisol levels go high. That causes inflammation. You're going through menopause. Your estrogen, progesterone levels are dropping. That causes inflammation. You've got thyroid function that's too high or too low. That causes inflammation. So checking your hormone levels with your doctor to make sure that that's not the cause of your inflammation is really important. Patricia, you have a question. Do you recommend colonics on regular intervals and quarterly? Really, your colon is a self-cleaning oven. So it has the ability to clean itself. So I recommend a high fiber diet, 30 to 40 grams or more a day. Most people don't get enough fiber. I challenge you to log your food in something like Chronometer and see how much fiber you're actually getting on a daily basis, and then up the ante slowly and steadily. And you will find that your bowels will clean themselves. Increase your fermented food, sauerkraut, kimchi, natto. Get those good bugs back into your colon. That's going to help clean out your colon. So again, drink lots of water. If you're dehydrated, you're not going to flush your colon, literally. So I'm not a fan of doing a lot of these invasive techniques if you haven't started with just doing a good cleanse with food on a regular basis. Mary says, definitely the right foods is the medicine for the body and heals, but I am on board with that 100%. And so, Beverly, you have a question. If we have good lifestyle and nutrition, our organs can take care of themselves. And the answer is absolutely yes. Your body is a self-healing, self-repairing unit. It wants to get to homeostasis. It wants to find balance. It can't keep up when we have bombarded with too many things or we're inundated with too many traumas. The body doesn't have the ability to heal. And that's when medicine comes in. That's when interventions come in, because we sometimes have to support the body with medications, treatments, procedures, and even sometimes supplementation. But you can't supplement away a bad lifestyle. You have to work on the foundations of good health, starting with the body first. Another piece of it is the mitochondria. So how many of you feel tired, right? You feel like more exhausted lately. You find you can't keep up with your day. By 3 o'clock, it's nap time. Yeah. Or you eat certain foods and you're ready to crash, right? Or you exhaust yourself, you go and do a workout and now you're spent for the rest of the day. That has to do with the mitochondria. The mitochondria are these tiny little organelles that make energy. Think of them as little batteries inside our cells. But as we age, those batteries also age and they can't keep up with all the energy demands in the body. So we want to improve our mitochondria because they're very sensitive to toxins. They're very sensitive to infections. They're very sensitive to reactive oxidative species and pollution. And once they get damaged, they keep shutting down energy production. So our battery life is less and less. How many of you have an old iPhone that doesn't charge for very long? That's like your mitochondria running out of juice, right? So how do we improve the health of our mitochondria? Fasting. Tell me in the chat, how many of you like to fast occasionally? Intermittent fasting. Any fasters out there? Yeah, yeah, awesome. Yes, yes, yes. So we know through science that occasionally fasting can help stimulate the body's regeneration of mitochondria. So it doesn't mean when you're stressed to go starve yourself, because that's not good for the body. That's too much stress. But when you're having a good day and you've been well nourished, maybe take a day where you don't eat 3 meals, you eat 2 meals. Maybe you decide to cut things off at 6 p.m. and don't have that late night snack. So giving your body just a little bit of hormetic stress by holding back that last meal stimulates the mitochondria to regenerate itself. A second way to rebuild your energy batteries is cold stress. How many of you guys like cold plunges? I'm not going to raise my hand because it's not me. I know. I know. That's usually the response I get is a big old no. But what we know about cold stress is that it stimulates the growth of new mitochondria. So here's a challenge for you. It's not the ice bucket challenge, but it's the shower challenge. So at the end of your shower, turn your water to cold and try to get at least a few minutes of cold water on your body. That's going to give you dopamine. That's going to give you energy. That's going to stimulate your mitochondria, and it's going to get you going again in the morning, okay? So the mitochondria are an important part of decreasing inflammation in the body. Your skeletal system, your muscles, your cartilage, your muscles, your bone. I know that there's a question about osteoporosis can get inflamed and can't regenerate. Oftentimes patients go to see a doctor and they say, oh, sorry, you've got bone loss. There's nothing we can do. And the answer is not quite. You can do something because the bone is regenerating all the time. But when the losses are greater than the regeneration, then you end up with osteoporosis. When the system can't keep up with the regeneration because of hormones, because of your genetics, because of your sedentary lifestyle, because of loss of nutrients, because not enough resistant exercises, you don't have enough hormetic stress on the bone to make it want to grow, then your bones are going to get thinner, okay? And so looking at how we can make the systems regenerate is also part of decreasing inflammation. I did mention cardiovascular systems fail as well from inflammation. The arteries have low nitric oxide. The vascular system has these immune cells that repair the damage in the arteries. There are immune cells that repair the heart muscle when it's damaged, and the body can't keep up with the damage, and that's when we end up with disease. So can you relate to that perfect storm of why the body can't stop getting inflamed? I started with a question with what causes chronic inflammation. It's two things. We're bombarded with too many pollutants, and our body's ability to keep up is not as amazing as it used to be. Okay, so an example of that, you're 16, you sneak out of the house, you party, and the next day you go to school and you can kind of keep up. But now you're over 50, you take a trip, you're jet lagged, it takes you a week to come back. How many of you can relate to that, right? So our resilience does change as we age. Our ability to keep up with the inflammatory load does change as we get older. So what do we have to do? We just have to make sure that we're fortifying these systems as much as we can on a daily basis and minimizing the amount of toxic load so that we can have an increased lifespan, but also increased health span. Okay. So yes, so that's where we are. All right. So your next question for me is, okay, that makes sense. Where do we start? So here's where we start. I want you to answer in the chat. You reach for processed food that's made in a factory because you're stressed, busy, or just hungry. You tend to order in food or eat out in restaurants because it's convenient. You don't always read package labels at the store before buying it because you're buying it out of need and instinct. You don't always look for the cleanest skincare, body care cleaners. You're just looking for what's on sale. Or you're just buying what your mom bought when you were growing up, right? How many of you can relate to that? How many of you feel like there are other things that might be compounding? Smoking, vaping, maybe having alcohol on a regular basis, using substances. Maybe you tend to scroll on your phone, spending hours scrolling on social media or watching the news or being on the internet on your computer. Or maybe you are somebody who sits at your desk all day because you have a long work hours. And you stay up because you're treating yourself to me time, right? These are all things that you can change. But guess what? You're not alone. We're all guilty of polluting the body in some way. The poison is in the dose. The poison is in the dose. If this is a regular habit, then you're going to continuously put pollutants in the system. So I want you to take a look at this list, maybe any list in your head, and make a decision today to make a change to the pollutants that you're bringing into the body. This might be going onto a website like ewg.org and looking for clean skincare products, or reading more labels, or only limiting to eating out X amounts a month, or making sure that you're cooking your food instead of buying prepared food. So I want you to think about that. All right, so here's some more examples of things you could do. Try to move away from things that you tend to desire. Maybe if you like sugar, don't go for the cookies and the pastries and the prepared sweets. Maybe choose fruits or dates or something else to sweeten your food, right? Maybe you like French fries or you like potato chips. Maybe you bake your own, right? You put it in an air fryer with some olive oil, make your own fries, make your own chips, make your kale chips. Be creative. Make the changes because you deserve it. Let's say you love bread. You're a bread fanatic and you're just like, I cannot give it up. Well, then make your own. And maybe then you can control the ingredients, or you can substitute with almond flour or coconut flour. So any bakers in the audience here today, any ideas on how you can make some substitutions, please share with the group. I definitely don't recommend keeping anything with trans fats or bad oils in the pantry. These things can be things like crackers and baked goods that have a lot of additives and things like that. So just be mindful that certain things are not good, even if they have a label of healthy snack on the box. Make sure you're reading the ingredients for those seed oils and trans fats and refined flours. Definitely recommend getting away from nitrates and processed meats. If you are going to have something, maybe look for uncured nitrate free, or just make your own if you can. Artificial sweeteners are a no-no for me. They definitely over time can cause a lot of inflammation. So a lot of diabetics are told to use Splenda or told to use aspartame-like products, Equal and things like that. I recommend switching over to a non-artificial sweetener. There's a question here about stevia. The answer is yes. For now, we think that's okay. Stevia and monk fruit are considered alternatives that are not inflammatory. We might find out different in the future, but for now, this is an okay alternative. Honey was mentioned. I'm a fan of honey, Kylie. So it's a great antioxidant, has lots of health benefits. The poison is in the dose. So make sure you're not drinking a cup of honey. Make sure you're putting a teaspoon of honey in your tea. So you want to make sure you moderate everything in moderation. Always look for colors, dyes, preservatives, flavors, thickeners, emulsifiers. Things like nut milks have a lot of carrageenan in them. People don't realize, but that's a gut buster. Basically kills your gut bacteria, right? Did you know that in Europe, they have a warning label for children that dyes like red and yellow dye causes behavioral problems, right? So we have so much, things like ADHD and behavioral problems and mood disorders and autism in children. But in Europe, they actually put a warning label to warn parents that there's been an active association of colors and dyes with behavioral disorders in children. So what do we do here? We give them Skittles. We give them Twizzlers. We give them Swedish Fish. We give them cereals like Fruit Loops. We're giving them colors and dyes as part of their treats. Unfortunately, we know that that's harmful to our health. And grains are laced with glyphosate, pesticides, and herbicides. If you look at the EWG, I want you to guess which cereal do you think has the highest levels of glyphosate? Think of cereals, breakfast cereals. Which breakfast cereal would you guess has the highest level of glyphosate? There's a question. As you ponder that question, let me look at these comments here, and let's just see if I can answer any of the questions along the way. Kachava, Chivani, plant-based. Yeah, they're good. They're very clean, Debbie. So if you are going to use a protein powder, for sure, those are better alternatives. But if you can eat your protein from food, beans and legumes and lentils, that would be my ultimate choice for you. Whole soy, things like that, because I know you're vegetarian. Those are good options, but again, less processing in general is better. Beverly has a comment. My grandmother believed in a little of everything, whatever she ate. She actively lived to 103. Yeah, of course, everything in moderation. I never demonize anything because once you start demonizing food, it becomes a trigger for you wanting more of it because it's like taboo, right? Look at you guys. I love you guys. Yes, 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 yes. It is Cheerios. So Cheerios are usually the first cereal we give to toddlers, right? We call it finger food. We have them pick it up with their fingers and we have them eat it, but it's the highest cereal with glyphosate. And we're giving it to them like basically from birth. So be careful about these things. Definitely want to be more mindful with our children, but also with our own, eating habits. Yeah. There's a question about hemp protein powder. I think that's fine, Charlene. I think that, again, as long as it's clean, I don't know any specific brands per se, so I can't speak to that 100%, but as long as the product doesn't have a lot of ingredients in it, maybe it just has the hemp seed and maybe a couple of other types of vegetarian seeds to make up that protein powder should be fine. Sometimes they use rice and bran as other alternatives that are mixed in with the plant protein powder. So just as long as it's organic and it's clean, I feel like that's okay. Factory raised animals are fed antibiotics, hormones, and pesticide laced grains. So be mindful of the quality of meat that you eat because you might be thinking I'm eating proteins, I'm eating animal proteins, I'm doing a great job, but you don't know what that animal was given. And so you're eating everything that animal is given. So if they're raised in a non-organic factory, then you might be getting a lot of extra that you didn't ask for. Miss Jackie asks if agave is good for sweetener. I'm not a super big fan of agave. Again, it has a lot of fructose in it, so it can increase fatty liver. Now, just like honey, though, everything in moderation. So if you love agave and you're getting it from the source and you're just using it in small amounts, it should be just fine because it's a natural product. But just be mindful that it is high in fructose and it can have some other negative impacts on the liver. Beverly, you have a question. Can you recommend a meat supplier? So it's always good to look local first. So if you have a local butcher that you can go to, that's always the freshest option. If you have a local farm that sells fresh eggs or fresh meat, of course, that's a best option, but not all of us have access to that. So there are online like Butcher Block that you can get a subscription to that gives you clean grass-fed meats. There's also fish companies that give wild salmon Alaskan wild salmon companies that can supply you with wild caught fish. So for sure, you can look at local grocers that do, just they're growing their own meat and butchering their own meat and providing you with grass-fed, grass-finished, or pasture-raised products, or you can look at online suppliers. Now, you may not have either access. So then you want to look for organic or pasture raised as much as you can. Um, and I know that's really a tough one because of the cost of food these days, and it's getting more and more expensive to buy groceries. So again, you have to pick your poison when it comes to that. You either spend the money on a new handbag and a pair of shoes, or you invest heavily in good quality food. I always do the latter. How do you feel about the debate about eggs versus cholesterol? Again, no science to back up that eggs is bad for you. Egg is a whole protein. It has all the amino acids in it. It has most of the vitamins except for vitamin C. It has all the vitamins that you need in it. It's a complete protein. So I'm a fan. So again, everything in moderation. So if you are a heart patient and your doctor is advised against it, I'm not speaking against them. I'm just saying that there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that cholesterol and food matter. Okay. So again, eat it if you like it, don't eat it if you don't want to, always in moderation. There's a question about monk fruit sweetener. I said earlier, yes, I'm okay with stevia and monk fruit for now. We don't know enough about them to be negative, so I'm saying it's positive. Beverly, you have a question about collagen. Is there a good one? Again, there's a lot of good studies on collagen. Still there's a big debate as to whether it does anything meaningful in the system. Collagen is primarily made up of 3 amino acids, and so it's not a complete protein. So it's not a substitution of your complete proteins, but it can give you the building blocks for good hair, for good skin, and maybe cartilage and joints and bone. There are still more studies that are needed. I like the marine collagen the best. So there's a company called Vital Proteins, and I have no affiliation with any company, but Vital Proteins makes a good, clean marine collagen. Another bovine collagen is Primal Kitchen. Again, they use grass-fed ingredients, so I do like Primal Kitchen as well, but that's my own bias. There's probably good brands out there. Patricia, you have the 1915 farm ships here. Thank you so much for sharing your source for clean, good grass-fed food. Charlene, you have a question about erythritol and stevia. I'm not a big fan of erythritol, so I'm going to say a no to that one. But the stevia by itself is fine. So I know a lot of brands blend both of those ingredients together, and again, it's a fruit sugar, but we're starting to see that maybe it's causing inflammation and plus or minus in the heart. So that's why I would suggest sticking to just stevia for now until we have more data on the erythritol. Patricia, you like your collagen. I like that too. So you get Great Lakes Wellness. I've not used that one personally, but I like your endorsement of that. I definitely am a collagen consumer. Okay. All right. So other things that you could do. There's a couple of other apps out there, guys, called Yuka and Think Dirty. They have products that you can select from. So if you're confused about what shampoo, what skincare, what lotion, what perfume, or you currently are using a brand and you want to see if it's a good or bad one, you can look your products up on these apps. Okay. So these are really good apps to kind of put down in your phone. Removing bad habits. Clearly, smoking, alcohol, substances, all the things that I mentioned earlier, can interfere with, inflammation. If you have a sleep tracker like an Aura ring that can keep track of your sleep and tell you how you're doing. If you have an Apple Watch, it can tell you what your stress levels are like. So if you need these kinds of gadgets to help you gauge what's coming in and how polluted or stressed your body is, they can help you figure that out. Again, I am a functional practitioner and I do work one-on-one with my patients to do some deeper dives if you haven't really been able to find the reason for the pollutant. Again, you might want to work with a functional practitioner to look for chronic infections like Lyme disease, like mold toxicity, look for things that are invading the body, like heavy metals, maybe old fillings, maybe your diet has a lot of mercury in it, maybe your home is contaminated with mold, maybe you're eating foods that are not in alignment with your immune system and you're having food allergies, maybe your gut bacteria is not healthy and you have an overgrowth, or maybe you have leaky gut, or anything else that might be an autoimmune trigger. So you may want to work with a skilled practitioner to see, especially if you've done all the lifestyle stuff and can't figure out what's still causing inflammation in your body. Um, Patricia, thank you for the suggestion on the red light. I know I mentioned cold therapy, but red light therapy is also really good for the mitochondria and it helps with skin rejuvenation. So again, I talked about those little batteries that help you stay young. That's also stimulated by red light therapy. I have a Juve box, again, no affiliation, but that's my red light. I love it. I use it 10 minutes every day to keep my skin looking fresh. Um, Charlene, you have a question about biotin for hair and nails. It depends. I don't recommend supplements randomly. If you are working with a functional practitioner, they can do a micronutrient test to see which nutrients your body is deficient in and then replace them accordingly. The quality of the supplement matters, the dose matters, and whether you need it or not matters. So in order to find good quality supplements at the right dose, and check your labs to see if you need it. Those are all important things. If you have a general practitioner, they can order a biotin level through Sonora Quest or LabCorp, and your insurance may or may not cover that. So that's another way to find out if you need it. Okay, how do you know how much inflammation? Oh, Beverly, you're getting ahead of ourselves. But how do we know how much inflammation we have? It has to do with blood testing. So you do have, and I'll get to it in a minute, but there are a lot of tests that can tell a practitioner if your body is inflamed. All right. So there are inflammation markers. Your immune system will send out SOS signals to tell us as practitioners that there is stress to the system. For instance, if you have liver disease, your doctor may tell you your liver enzymes are elevated. They might brush it off or blow it off, but it is a sign that your liver is not functioning properly and you should pay attention to it. Two, you may have heart disease and your doctor does a blood test and you have markers for heart inflammation, HSCRP, or you have LPPLA2, or you have oxidative markers that are elevated, or a BNP that's elevated. These are all signs of inflammation in the heart or vascular bed. So every organ system has an SOS signal that tells us if there's something going on there. And those markers can be tested in the blood. And I'll get to that in just a second. All right. So this is what we have to do. First is you have to feed your gut microbiome. I started out by saying that the gut is the seat of all health, and that is absolutely true. Your gut microbiome plays a huge role in teaching your immune system whether something is a pollutant or something is you. So the difference between self and non-self, that education to the immune cells comes from your gut microbiome. So if you want to build a healthy group of bacteria in your colon, you do need to eat 2 to 3 servings of fermented food daily. If you were in Korea, if you were in Japan, if you're in India, some of these communities have already built in a lot of fermented food into their diet. So again, adding these fermented foods back in can help rebuild some of that gut microbes. Some of you are gardeners. Being outside and growing your own food, working the soil, gets all that good bacteria in your mouth and in your body. If you're eating the food that you grew, just lightly wash it and eat it. You're going to eat a lot of that healthy soil microbes that are going to help rebuild your gut bacteria. You want to diversify your plant foods. Make sure that you're getting all colors of the rainbow. So think of different kinds of foods that are red. Let me know in the chat. What kinds of foods that are red? What kinds of foods that are yellow? What kinds of foods do you love that are orange? What foods do you eat every day that are blue or purple or green? Right? Let me know. These are things that maybe other people have never tried. And you want to try to aim for at least 30 different plants every week. So I know that's a struggle, but start where you are and work your way up. Maybe all you're doing is adding in blueberries to your breakfast, Or like Patricia, you like to have the yellow, red, and orange bell peppers, right? And you chop them up and you put them in your eggs every morning. These are things that you can start thinking about. Like, am I adding color? And am I adding plant diversity to my diet? I mentioned earlier, oh, I love the yellow and the blue cauliflower. That's great. I also love purple carrots, purple onions, right? Those are really amazing too. Or even the multicolored carrots. Have you guys seen those bags? I'm a Trader Joe's shopper and they have multicolored carrots. Those are really good because you're going to get all those in there. And then you buy a bag of spinach or kale, and now you got green there, right? And then you have some blueberries. Now you're covering most of those colors through your week and then just trading it up for different kinds. All right. Now, plants have fiber, period. I know there's a lot of different diets out there, carnivore and, no plants and, no this, no that. I'm a flexitarian. If the food fits, eat it. If the food causes you inflammation, maybe that's not the right food for you, right? What your neighbor is eating is different than what your body needs. What your influencer on Instagram is telling you to eat, their body is different than yours. You need to start to become your own body whisperer. What foods are in alignment with you and what foods are not in alignment with your body? Beverly, thank you for those suggestions. Radishes are great. Red cabbage is beautiful. All the bell peppers, different colored tomatoes, all of that. Question, do I eat meat? Yes, I'm a flexitarian. I eat what my body feels good with, and then I take out what it doesn't. Now, for instance, I'll give you an example. One day I decided I wanted to be a vegetarian. I know, I don't know why. I decided that was going to be good for me. I was going to be 100% plant based. So I got rid of my eggs in the morning and I started buying steel cut oats. And I was boiling them in water and I was sprinkling cinnamon on them and I was putting them in, even though I don't love the texture, thinking I was doing myself a win. Within 2 weeks, I looked like I had sausages for fingers. My fingers were swollen. My knuckles were swollen. I couldn't make a fist. I couldn't even squeeze my hands. I was like, what's going on? I thought being vegetarian would make me healthier. In fact, it was triggering my inflammation. And it took me 2 weeks of going back to my original diet before my inflammation went away. All right. So now I'm not demonizing oats. I'm only saying that for me, that was a trigger food. So if you eat meats and that causes you more inflammation, then that's not a good aligned food for you. And if you eat grains and you feel great with them, then that's an aligned food with you. I'll give you an example of my sister. So my sister was plant-based and she did really well on plant-based. Her cholesterol is beautiful. She had Hashimoto's, but she went into remission. She was feeling great. Her hair came back. She lost weight. She was feeling energetic. But then she read a book, and the book suggested that women should have 1 gram of protein for every pound, and they should be doing weightlifting, and they should be eating lots of meat. So she changed her diet, and she started eating like the book suggested. And I did her blood tests, and guess what? Her inflammation markers went up, her blood sugar went up, her cholesterol went up, and her thyroid antibodies went back up again. And she's like, but this, particular influencer suggesting this diet. And I said, it's fine for them. It's not your diet. So we each have individual genetics, individual physiology, individual gut health, individual microbiome. So our diets have to be individualized to our physiology. My sister went back to eating a more plant-based vegetarian diet. I just recently checked her blood test again. Everything is back to normal. Isn't that impressive? So even in my own family, a lot of times this is something that's diverse. I do better with meats and low grains. Other people in my family do better with a more plant-based diet. So 30 to 40 grams of fiber a day. Yes, you have to be self-aware, absolutely. And if you want to, download this free app called Chronometer and keep track of your fiber for the next week. See if you're hitting your fiber goals. All right? Because most people will tell me they are, and then when they track, they realize that's not happening. So in addition to the food that you eat, you have to be mindful about how you eat. Eat slowly, without your phone, without your TV, without your laptop, without driving, all the other things that people do while they're eating. Maybe if you don't digest very well, start by doing some mindful practices like gratitude and deeper diaphragmatic breathing. Maybe take in all of the colors on your plate. and the smells and the sounds and the flavors. Having meals with loved ones makes a big impact in how the body receives the food. Studies have actually proven that. And, again, intermittently fast when you feel like you can. This does help decrease inflammation. I mentioned that eating is an inflammatory process. When we eat sugar, within 30 minutes, there's inflammation in our arteries. When we eat fat, within 4 hours, there's little flames, fires in our blood vessels. When we continuously snack, when we eat every hour, when we eat large volumes of food, and we eat from the time we wake up to the time we go to bed, the body constantly is putting out these fires. And when we do that day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, that inflammation causes disease. So give yourself pause from the eating process. Allow your body to digest food between meals. In Ayurveda, they do recommend waiting 3 to 4 hours before eating your next meal. And I think there was an ancient wisdom that allowed them to see that the body needed time to resolve the inflammation caused by that digestive process. So, yes, make eating an important activity. I absolutely agree, Beverly. So, again, if you have a skilled practitioner, work on any underlying gut issues, low acid, enzymes, intolerances, leaky gut. So, again, you have to ask yourself, are you able to eat without your phone? That's a question I want you to answer. Now, we talked a little bit about this before I took my tangent. Supporting your liver and your mitochondria also help fortify the detoxification process. Again, cruciferous vegetables, sulfur-based vegetables, dark leafy greens, herbs like dandelion, artichoke, burdock root all help the liver function properly. Okay, you want to eat clean, well-sourced proteins. You're welcome, Charlene. And so, when people come to me and they say, how do I know that my mitochondria is not working properly? Or how do I know that my liver is inflamed? Your practitioner can do some blood tests, can look at toxins and metals and mold and chemicals that are in your body. We can even look at your liver genes to see if you have inherited poor detoxification pathways. We can look at markers for your mitochondria to see if you are diseased when it comes to your mitochondria. They also use that to determine your biological age. I know you guys have heard of that. Your biological age is how old your cells are. So a decade ago, when I was in my other medical practice in Fountain Hills, I did a biological age test, and my body was 10 years older than my actual age. That was shocking. It was because I was stressed. I was working too long hours. I was not eating properly, not sleeping properly. My body was basically exhausted. But I'll give you the happy side of that story. I did one recently, and I am now my actual biological age. So it's amazing that the body is resilient. You can stress the systems and age quickly, but then you can come back from it if you give yourself the right information. So it's something that you need to remember is the body is a self-healing, self-repairing unit. If you take nothing else away from my talk today, you want to support your immune system. Remember, if you have an autoimmune condition where you have vitiligo, alopecia, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, thyroid disease, you need to support your immune system by consuming foods that decrease inflammation. Okay. Polyphenols, we mentioned that, colorful fruits and vegetables, spices like turmeric, ginger, cayenne, cinnamon, all good to help decrease inflammation. I mentioned omega-3 fats like cold water fish. Garlics and onions were mentioned earlier as well. Green tea is a great antioxidant. Beets are highly anti-inflammatory. Citrus, that's high in, vitamin C. There's a question. Is that a blood test? Oh, I must have missed when that got put up. Was it related to the toxins, the mitochondria, the liver, or autoimmunity? Let me know, Debbie, which blood test or which reference. Biological age test. Yes, that is a blood test. So there's a company called True Diagnostics, and you could buy the test online, and it's about $495, and you can get the blood test done, and it'll tell you how your body is aging, and it'll give you a biological age. Okay. There are also tests, of course. Beverly, you'd asked me earlier, how do you know if you're inflamed? There are test markers, blood markers for inflammation and autoimmunity. I mentioned hormones. Again, estrogen and progesterone decrease inflammation in the body. So when we go through menopause, we automatically have a higher inflammatory state. Anybody who's had menopausal symptoms can tell you that they feel hot, they feel sweaty, they feel achy and stiff, their joints hurt more, they might have found that they have more cholesterol and blood sugar issues, they have more belly fat, stubborn belly fat, and these are all inflammatory conditions that happen because estrogen and progesterone protect us from that inflammation. But as soon as we go through menopause and lose those protective hormones, it can cause more problems. Now, testosterone does it too. I didn't mention that, but it is also anti-inflammatory. So losing testosterone can also cause dementia, decreased energy, mood changes, belly fat, loss of muscle mass, loss of libido, all kinds of things. Thyroid, again, out of balance can be inflammatory. Insulin, like I mentioned before, can also be inflammatory, and cortisol from stress can also be inflammatory. So for those of you that are watching me tonight, have you had your hormones checked? If you're dealing with chronic inflammation, has that been assessed for you? I always bring up mental health because no matter how much you work on the body, if you haven't worked on the mind, you're not going to get anywhere. Okay. The brain is so powerful. Your mind and your thoughts and your feelings and your trauma is so pervasive in causing inflammation if you haven't dealt with it in a positive way. So you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Of course, that means that you need to choose your environment wisely. All right. The information that you read, hear, talk about, right? We know about this in the algorithm. I'll say something like, I don't know what I said to somebody. I mentioned something to a patient once, like hemorrhoids. And then the next thing I get on my feed in my Instagram is a reel on hemorrhoids. I was like, what is going on? So we know that the universe is listening. In the same way, whatever you read, hear, think, talk about is programming your system. So be careful what you choose. Cultivate positive habits. Align yourself with other people with positive habits, that have your values, that embody your desire for where you want to be. If you are suffering from old trauma or stories or grief or loss, get some professional help, work with a counselor, do some kind of therapeutics, whether they're psychedelics or they're EMDR, or they're just plain old counseling, something that helps you with that. Build a practice of resilience through breath work and meditation and nature and pet therapy. Sleep is such an important part of mental health. And so if you're not a good sleeper, ask yourself, what do you need to help improve your sleep? Maybe you need to work with a sleep specialist. Maybe you need to work on good sleep habits. Maybe you need botanicals or other types of investigations to see if it's keeping you up. So what are some of the things that you guys watching me tonight do to help with your mental health? Share with some of the other people on the call, and this might help guide them, because this is a tribe of like-minded people. When I talk about spending time with people that are like-minded, this is the group. These are the women and men that are showing up tonight for themselves, that want to learn how to improve their bodies. So you want to find these kinds of people in your life, in your community. Weightlifting at 69. Hurrah, that is amazing. Absolutely want to get in the gym, want to do the weightlifting, want to find other people that are interested in weightlifting. You want to build a community around the type of lifestyle you want to create for yourself. Meditation and yoga. I'm totally on board, already a doer. I'm not just a member, I'm also the president of that club. So I'm a big fan of teaching people how to meditate and do breath work and to do mindful practices and yoga. And I also love Tai Chi. So all of those things are a yes on my part. So, again, whatever you choose, and it doesn't have to be what we're choosing. It could be pickleball. It could be bunko. It could be your poker game. Whatever feels good to you, that keeps you with people that make you laugh, make you feel seen, heard, that have good habits, they're going to help build your body in a healthy space. If you're spending time with people who drink alcohol heavily, who spend a lot of time gossiping, who get caught up in the news, then that's really what you're going to pollute your body with. So remember, you have to choose wisely if you want to decrease inflammation in the body. We already talked about exercise a little bit, but sometimes when people have inflammation, they don't want to move. They will stay sedentary because moving makes it worse. And I understand that. But not moving is going to actually make your inflammation a lot worse. So even if you have to get help, go to a physical therapist, work with a personal trainer, do a little bit every day, a little bit of gentle exercise of just getting in the flow, moving and stretching your muscles will help in the recovery of these organs being inflamed, right? Start small, make sure it's right for you, be safe, and then most importantly, be consistent. Oftentimes we'll go all gung ho, we'll join the gym, we'll go for a week, and then that's it, right? So I want you to pick an exercise that you can do for life. I want you to do something that you truly enjoy, that you can't miss, right? Moving a little bit every day will help you manage your pain and make you feel better. Walking, I love that too. Word training, excellent. So this is a slide that's a little overwhelming. Um, I made a list of things that can pollute the body and what tests I usually order for my patients to find the source of their discomfort. So these are things like heavy metals and molds and chemicals, um, environmental toxins, food scent triggers, environmental allergies, chronic infections in the body, overgrowth of bacteria in the colon, in the small intestine, leaky gut, infections in the stomach like H. pylori, looking at how the body is functioning. Like, are your detox organs working properly? Is your immune system working better? Is your gut functioning properly? Are your hormones in balance? These are some of the tests that I order for some of my patients, depending on who they are, to see if everything is functioning in the right way. I'm not a big fan of supplements, but I do recommend them sometimes. Just for attending today, you will get a PDF from my staff with my favorite supplements for inflammation. And so here's just 5 of my favorites. Fish oil and what brands and how much I usually recommend. Turmeric and which brands and how much I usually recommend. Ginger, the same thing. Vitamin D and probiotics. But again, remember, we're all individuals. Not everybody is going to benefit from everything that I suggest. So it's important to individualize your treatment with your doctor. Okay. So now you've stayed for the call, and I thank you for that. Sometimes it's difficult to find these like-minded health practitioners, and health can be really overwhelming and confusing. So if you are somebody who's looking for answers and you want to consider working with me, I invite you to sign up for a free phone call. You can do that through my website or call my office directly to set up a phone call. Again, I thank you all for showing up tonight, and I'll see you again next month for the next session in our presentations.